All right, it is now 4:30. We will call the Board of Supervisors work session Tuesday, September 18, 2018, 4:30 p.m. in the main conference room of County Administration Building 1 Center Street, Chatham, Virginia, to order. Roll call, please.
Mr. Barber?
Here.
Mr. Blackstock?
Present.
Mr. Davis?
Present.
Mr. Farmer?
Here.
Dr. Miller? Mr. Scarce?
Here.
Mr. Warren?
Here. Are there items to be added to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to add Project AP to the closed section of the work session as follows. Discussion concerning prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding its facilities in the community. Staff contact Matthew D. Rowe, Legal Authority, Virginia Code 2.2-3711A5, subject matter Project AP, purpose discussion of prospective unannounced business and or industry.
All
Second.
right.
No?
Oh, you can.
Mr. Davis, if you'll hit the second once it comes up. Motion made by Mr. Blackstock, seconded by Mr. Davis. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, cast your vote, please. Please record vote. Motion approved unanimously to add the agenda item. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Blackstock, seconded by Mr. Scarce. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, please cast your vote. Please record the vote. Motion carried unanimously. For the citizens' convenience, all work session and committee meetings are now being recorded and can be viewed on the same YouTube location as the Board of Supervisors business meeting. Please remember that the board's work session is designed for internal board and county staff communication, discussion, and work. It is not a question and answer session with the audience. Accordingly, during the work session, no questions or comments from the audience will be entertained, respectfully. Any outburst or disorderly conduct from the audience will not be tolerated and may result in the offending person's removal from the work session. As a reminder, all county citizens and other appropriate parties as designated by the board's bylaws are permitted to make comments on the hearing of the citizens section of tonight's business meeting. Down to presentations. The first presentation is for the STAR program presentation is Mr. Richard Hicks in conjunction with Dr. Mark Jones and Robin Haymore.
We have two representatives from the school, I think, that are going to present to you on the Ready for Success program, which is at the old Armory.
Excuse me a second. Please note that Dr. Miller has arrived. Thank you, Dr. Miller. Glad to have you.
And secondly, a program they call their STAR program. So at this point, I think Ms. Haymore will be making the presentation.
I think so. Well, good evening, everybody. Is there a clicker?
On top of this?
Okay, wonderful. All right, and it isn't. I was joking with Dr. Jones coming in because usually I get here early to set up my own IT, and it was done for me. So I feel downright spoiled. So again, thank you all for having me here. I do really appreciate it. For those I have not met, my name is Robin Haymore. I am currently the Associate Superintendent for Support Services for Pittsylvania County Schools. I'm a previous special education teacher. I'm also a school psychologist, and I mention that because a lot of the programming that you're going to see today is reflective of some of that training that our staff brought into these select programs. As Mr. Hicks had mentioned, there are two that I want to share. I'd like to try to keep them 15 minutes each because I know time is of the essence. But of course, this is your work session. If there are questions along the way, please feel free to stop me. So the first one I'm going to be discussing is Ready for Success. We'll get it. Don't move.
Did you get a?
I can see some grass falling.
No. I'm a fast talker.
I wasn't directed to you, Ms. Abel.
Go back and listen. All right. I tend to move around, but let's see what.
I'll stay on this side, so.
All right, there we go. Okay, so if you have not been by yet in Chatham, please do so to visit our new location at Victory Academy. The name itself, I remember walking back one day with Ms. Caston, some other folks, to say, how can we capture the spirit of this particular building? So Victory Academy it is, the old armory. I have some other photos in there of some of the classrooms and whatnot, but as you can tell, he did a lovely job with the landscaping and all the painting, and we thank you for your partnership there. So what's our agenda for today? I'm going to talk a little bit about Pittsylvania County Schools pre-RFS. What was that impetus for change? Some information around the startup and certainly programming, administrative design of the program, outcome data, and then a few words regarding our expansion. So before RFS, before the Ready for Success program, how is Pittsylvania County serving challenging students? And what I mean by challenging, I'm talking about behavioral challenges, social, emotional challenges in particular. For a while, we had self-contained classrooms for students with an emotional disability. Some of the pros for that, wouldn't take you too long to figure that out. A pro would be they're not disrupting, per se, a general education class. What were some of the cons around that? We often rushed students into eligibility for special education to serve them in this particular capacity. So we recognized that was not necessarily the best way to do things, but the only way to do things to get them into these classrooms. We also had private day placements. Of course, again, a pro, no longer a disruption to the school environment. And they did have some access to mental health supports. What were some of those cons, however? Long stays outside of the general classroom environment, poor academic performance. We're going to look at some of that data in just a moment. And something that we talk about in my profession as a school psychologist is children becoming the term institutionalized. They become very used to being around other children with significant disabilities. It becomes harder and harder to bring them back into the general education environment. We also have home-based placements. Again, this is through their individual educational plan, their IEP. Again, they're no longer a school disruption, but when you look at home-based placements, it's very difficult to argue that you're really meeting the need of the IEP. Again, a lot of times we have an inability to address the behavior, and at times those stays can be lengthy, sometimes for years, having them out on home-based placements. So what was the impetus for change within Pittsylvania County? This is something that long had been talked about. How could we better serve these students? Well, we have a few things. First and foremost, PCS, as historical with PCS, could not accept failure to make academic progress. And remember what I said about these students going out into these different environments. We cannot guarantee that they were actually going to be moving forward in the curriculum. We also in Pittsylvania County have had a shift, especially over the last 5 years, into focusing on more inclusive practices and programming for students with special needs. And that's all students with special needs. If they have a specific learning disability, autism, whatever the case may be. So these students were not going to be left out of that shift. So we had to rethink, how can we better serve them? As a result, we did disband those classrooms I was referring to. There are no longer any self-contained programming for a student with an emotional disability in Pittsylvania County schools. Another thing we moved towards, which would be a completely separate presentation for this board, would be moving towards the Virginia Tiered Systems of Supports, Positive Behavioral Interventions, and Supports Initiatives. This is 5 years running now, in which we look at tiered interventions for students. As you're thinking about that, and I'm going to show a diagram in just a minute, the Ready for Success program will be up near the top for really very intensive programming. Just like academics, we knew behavior had to be taught, so we really started looking at our discipline data, office referrals, suspensions, school culture, and climate, and we began looking for patterns. We began to really scrutinize those private day placements. We have an average length of stay of 3 years and an SOL pass rate. The highest was only 8%. We felt we really could do a whole lot better than that. And our data indicated a pattern, and this is what it was. We really had a very small number of students, and they were young. So when you're thinking about externalizing behaviors, you know, the one I always pick on is I'm going to pick up this chair and throw it across the room, okay? People think, gosh, that must be 3rd, 4th, 5th middle school. It was not. It was really our very, very young, pre-K, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd grade students. Often these students are coming to us from a background of trauma. Okay, they're coming out of not just what we think about broken homes, but broken homes with substance abuse, lots of movement, the list goes on and on. They were leaving public school at a very early age, often for years, and facing continuing academic and behavioral challenges. So the question was, could we serve them better? We felt we could. We had 2 primary goals. First, continuity, both academically and behaviorally. Second was to decrease the amount of time students spent outside of the, quote, regular school setting. We wanted them to go back as soon as possible. So that brought us the Ready for Success program, which we believe to be short-term, intensive. It is a behavioral intervention. That's the word I use all the time. I've had people come to me and ask, or they'll tell me, I hear Pittsylvania County have built their own private day school. We have not. That is a behavioral intervention that children are sent for a very limited amount of time. It is only for students kindergarten through 5th grade. Okay, just very quickly about startup, because I get this a lot. When we began this venture, the first thing that we did, don't laugh, was to say, let's kind of Google that. Let's see what some other divisions are doing around this work. And it turned up next to nothing. We really were going to be working in uncharted territory. Of those we were able to find, service providers coming together in partnerships was a major theme. So it couldn't just be Pittsylvania County. We were going to have to work with other folks to make this happen. Of course, there was a vetting process involving all of our elementary principals. We created a task force from them and established expectations that the students would return to their base school. We had to have them on board in order to make this happen. I was able to write a grant with one of our partners, Smart Beginnings. Through that grant, we were given approximately $10,000 for materials, and that started up everything from computers to some of the books you see there, just a little beginning piece, again, not of our money, but grant money to make this happen. It also afforded us an opportunity, once we've gone through the vetting process, to adopt a curriculum. This was extremely important to me as ex-special education teacher, because it's one thing to put kids in a building or kids in a room. It's another to offer therapeutic curriculum that actually addresses and hopefully replaces the behaviors that we no longer want to see. So this is the curriculum that we adopted. In your yellow folders, I'm not going to go through it in the interest of time, but there's more information about Incredible Years, just a few things very quickly. Sorry, I'm going to keep talking if that's okay. That it is interlocking, it is comprehensive, it is not just meant for students, it's meant for teachers, parents, and students. There is a list of building blocks in your folder that talks about all the programming, everything from a parent training program, toddler, 2 to 8, there's an autism one. Anyways, as you look at some of your materials in there, there are 3 that we've adopted now in Pittsylvania County. As part of the grant, we were also able to train our general education teachers at the base schools. So as of today, if you are a pre-K, kindergarten, 1st, or 2nd grade teacher, general ed in Pittsylvania County, you have been trained under this Incredible Years Teacher Classroom Management Program. Why that was important, think about what our mission was. These children are going to go back to the base school. So we had to beef up the skill set of our general education teachers so they could better handle what was being sent back to them. Okay? Second piece of that we purchased through the Incredible Years series is what's now being offered only at the Ready for Success program, which is called Dinah School. And Dinah School is a version of the Incredible Years program, which is highly therapeutic. They receive both individual and group counseling, along with services related to academics. And I don't know where I'm at, so hold on. I want to keep talking so I can, thank you, sweetie. Can I turn that around just for a second?
You can.
Thank you. Okay. Something else that was very important to us as we were working through the program was what we refer to in my line of work as wraparound services, okay? Because what we were finding, back to these students that were being sent there, trauma, it's one thing to have them with us during the school day and see progress, and then they go home. And our families needed more support than what we were able to provide. So we consider that an area of growth in working with some of our other partners to say, how else can we better serve these students, not just educationally, but again, at home. Anyways, there's a very slick triangle on this. Oh, here we go. I think we got it back. So I can give you an idea of what the continuum looks like. Is it safe for me to hit this clicker in?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, yeah, I talked about Dinah. Okay, one other piece that they have there, I'm trying to make sure I hit on the curriculum. A therapeutic day treatment is also offered through our contract with National Counseling Group. These children receive both daily individual and group sessions there at the Ready for Success program. And I believe I did mention wraparound. And here's the triangle. So, in Pittsylvania County, our elementary continuum of behavioral supports looks like this. At the bottom, back to our PBIS initiative, all elementary schools, frankly all schools in Pittsylvania County, not just elementary, have a behavioral matrix, so students know what the expectations are, lesson plans. I've talked about that teacher classroom training program, and one we hope to introduce in January 2019 is working in concert with our school counselors to improve work with them. We have a check-in, check-out intervention, and then at the top you see where we have the Ready for Success program. Very quickly around staffing, 10 students, a maximum of, and there's 2 classrooms, 1 kindergarten through 2nd, 1 3 through 5. We have 2 teachers, 2 teacher aides, 2 child-specific assistants that serve a couple students that have an IEP, and 1 therapeutic day treatment counselor. So that is current staffing. A note to that staffing, those were not new staff given to us. I robbed those from other schools. So literally remove 1 when the numbers went down so we could have what we needed over at RFS to make this happen. Admission criteria is open to both general and special education students. Big take-home point for the board, this is not a special education initiative. The majority of our students are general ed. Another point around criteria, these students are not meeting their basic behavioral expectations at the base school. They are receiving the most intensive services that we can give them at the base school before coming into the Ready for Success program. Something I am often asked as a previous role as a special education director, what do you do, Robin, when you send them over and they are not yet special ed? Again, the key term to this program is intervention. Think about it the same way you would if a child is not learning how to read. We would provide an educational intervention to intervene upon that reading deficit. We're doing the same thing here with behavior, okay, and document it as such. Again, our goal is short-term placement, no more than 90 school days. That is the maximum that we have students there. We do have periodic treatment team meetings with key stakeholders back at their base schools, so we can prepare the base school for their transition. The transition process is usually completed within 3 weeks. We always begin with what we refer to as a partial. Usually that means the child will begin their day there, maybe stay up till lunch, and then resume RFS in the afternoon for counseling sessions. Of course, transportation in this division is a very reasonable, sometimes challenge, but we have been able to work through that with Mr. Scott, our transportation director. So what does some of the data show as I wrap it up? For our 2017-18 school year, return to the base school, meaning from Ready for Success program back to their home school, 79% we were able to return. We have a 0% recidivism rate at this time. Our SOL pass rates are extraordinary compared to the 8% presented in private day. Reading at 70%, math 60, science 80, social studies 100%. And all of our students made gains on measures of academic progress. So that you know what that is, that's the universal screener that we utilize in Pittsylvania County Schools for all children now pre-K to 8th grade. Money saved for the 2016 through 2018, again, our first year was a very small pilot year. Last year we had a few more students, so we have estimated right now that RFS has saved approximately $1.62 million in savings for where these children were gone directly into private day placement. That's for tuition and behavior support only. What you do not see there are any savings that would be acquired due to related services, speech, language, occupational therapy, things of that nature that often these students often have. You also don't see in there is anything for extended year services. Extended year services meaning summer services for students that are outside in our private day placements. And of course, CSA is responsible for a percentage of that. Expansion currently at the Armory, if you were to go tomorrow, we have 15 students that are being served there. As I mentioned, the majority of them are kindergarten, first, and second grade students. If we were to assume an educational per diem of $300, which is certainly very reasonable, it ranges from $295 to $350 a day, depending on the private day school. And that does not include behavior support. We're looking at a total savings of $810,000, or approximately $54,000 per student per year. We anticipate serving this year at least 20, remembering that the students are always coming and going, okay? So one student may be there for their 18-week therapeutic day roll through the Donna School program. Others have gone back earlier, okay? So knowing that, we have anticipated we're between 20 and 25. What's next for us? Robin is very, very, very interested in transitioning select students back from private day placements via RFS. We talk about triaging them back through. So again, a step-down program. Let's see how they do here, and then stepping them back into their day schools. We've also considered longer-term placements. I've had questions from community folks, sometimes just walking through the Walmart, wanting to know if in fact they can have their child placed there. So we've had some interest. Right now, of course, it's just Pittsylvania County. Questions or comments regarding the Ready for Success program?
Questions from the board? Let's start.
Mine's not a question, but more of a comment. I know last year when, prior to me joining the board, when the board agreed to look into the Armory, I just simply looked at it as a bricks and mortar type of transaction. But this is well beyond bricks and mortar with what you all are doing. So I'm very impressed, and I think it's on the right direction.
Thank you, sir, so much. We are, I should have let off, so very grateful for that opportunity in serving our students so very well. It's been a nice fit.
The 79% going back to the mainstream. The 21% on the private day.
No, I should have mentioned that. Right now, think about when they come in. So we did have some students that arrived to us later in the school year. So if we had some that came in mid-April, May, we let those babies start with us because they had not actually made it through their full 18-week of their intervention. So to date, we have only lost, we've only lost one child to private day that we've had since we've had RFS, one student. I will mention, I'm going to say the same thing for STAR in a minute, and that particular individual, that student went on to residential placement.
Just one other question. If they complete the 90 days and they're not ready to go back to mainstream, what is that, private day?
No, right now, and that's where we are, sir, in deliberating what do we do with 90. And the reason why we came up with 90, and I blew through that Donna School discussion there, that is the length of time that a student would be in this therapeutic program. Okay, it's essentially 18 weeks. And while we moved to that this year, the elementary principals really want to know that a student had graduated out of something. It was not just we're looking at the behavior intervention plan or arbitrarily saying, yes, Robin's ready to go back when she wasn't. So through the lens of the elementary principal, if they have graduated, we begin the transition, actually before graduation. The only ones we've held off so far are those that came to us at the end of last year. We try to make that decision and move on.
Mr. Brown.
Key part of what you're doing, and I applaud you for it. Having run jails for a long time, hopefully this is a necessary step to intervene early. A lot of that change will have to occur also at home. Are you getting the cooperation and support from community-based services that would make those things happen? And obviously, this is a new program, and you're working with other partners. You must be. Are you getting? And I'm not asking you to throw anybody under the bus. I'm just
not
asking
at
in
all.
general.
It's a wonderful question, and I'd like to expand on it a little bit if you don't mind.
Sure.
And let the board know that last year, we made an attempt to weave in the Parenting Incredible Years program. I made a strong attempt. We worked with 2 consultants with Smart Beginnings, wrote a second grant to make that happen, and we did not have the parent participation that we had hoped. Now, I know that it was mentioned to some of our community partners to offer that piece because it's family, it's not school, and that it may swing a bigger bat by doing it that way, but that to date they have not been interested in doing that. But through the lens of the school, we did make that attempt, and I wish we had some more participation. Those that we did, those children went back very quickly, I'll tell you that.
What's a key part of it?
It's a huge part, and in fact, what you would read, you took a moment and read the literature around Incredible Years, they speak to that. They go on and on about it, that you can do this piece and this piece, but without family, it's extremely difficult to generalize what we're trying to do out into the community. So, thank you.
Dr. Miller.
Question. Is the term visiting teacher still used, or is it homeschool coordinators now?
Homeschool coordinator.
How are they involved?
They are not directly involved per se, sir, with the program. Their offices are in my office in Chatham. They are often very involved on the front end when there is an issue around truancy or a behavioral concern. A lot of times they're brought in. I'm thinking of an IEP meeting right now, the one just sat in with me. So it depends on the nature of the issue with the family as to their level of involvement. I will tell you, I guarantee our homeschool coordinators know about every one of my babies that are over at RFS. But their level of involvement is dependent upon the need.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Scarce and then Mr. Davis.
Just a quick question. Obviously, this is great results here. Since you're setting the standard, how involved is the state been, or are they showing you guys any recognition for what you're trying to do? And if not, do you need any help from us to get that recognition?
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for even saying that. Well, I presented this program at the CSA conference in April of last year. Time has flown, and the response was absolutely overwhelming. I've got calls and emails from other school divisions, other boards like yourself. Please come, show us how we can do this, Robin. Now, I will tell you, once summer came, that interest kind of dwindled. I had, when I was presenting, I got real nervous. I don't tend to get nervous, but I got very nervous when I saw Dr. Abrams with the VDOE in my presentation, because I knew we were about ready to get graded. And she came up afterwards and said literally every division should be moving in this direction. She said there was not one red flag, and I always worry about it through the lens of special education and knowing that we are sending them there as general ed, and it was extremely well received. I know the state has asked me to present at the, there's a state level special education directors. I've agreed to do that, but other than that, I've not received any other requests. Happy to do so.
Mr. Davis.
Yes, ma'am, I want to thank you and to Dr. Jones. It's an outstanding job. I think this is, I know it's an asset to the county and especially our schools that we're very proud of. I would ask one question. One of the questions is, does this go up to the college level? Because there's a reason. I went up to Liberty, say 2 weeks ago. I have to do some classes with training students in scuba and all this. Well, anyway, this particular class, we were notified, the other instructor and myself, that you have 2 that have some learning disabilities. So I'm thinking, well, I've never seen that before. So, but we had to do some extra work to show them some things, for
Yes, sir.
their interpretation of underwater, all this other stuff. So I was just wondering, this apparently is going to Liberty. I mean, it must be already citated with them. It just carries on with them, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, there's probably a couple different ways to answer your question, sir. Through the lens of IDEA, which is a law that governs special education students, yes, sir, that would carry them through till they graduate with a diploma or age 22 for me. And then oftentimes they do go to Liberty or Radford or something like that with that IEP. But I will tell you, those colleges often will do their own assessment. I did assessment within that environment when I was at Radford to make sure they still need those services. But in theory, yes, it would follow them.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
That's a whole nother presentation for this board. Yeah, it depends on the nature of the
Is that
disability.
psychological? Because I know where I fit on the psychological scale of criminal intent, so I already know where I'm at. But I'm just saying, as far as say these younger children, or
Younger children, well, our hope is, sir, that, and it always is for special education. I come by, honestly, my mother was an educator, special educator for 30 years. And so to me, the goal of special education is to intervene early and get them out. I don't ever like to speak about a child being a lifer in special education. Do we have them? We do. They will always need that level of support. But we do have some that, yes, sir, they will never need an IEP through this RFS program. We send them back and we do not refer them for special ed. That is my goal.
My last statement is this: where were you guys at when I was in mine? 8 or 9 years old.
How old are you, sir?
Thank you. I'll be 62 if I make it till March 8th.
No,
Thank you so much.
let me,
Thank
if
you.
I may.
Yes, sir.
I'm just going to say this sort of in the same vein, that I absolutely appreciate this program, and I'm thinking right now, obviously can't say names, but I know personally 2 young men who grew up who had this designation when they were very early in school, and the interventions that were done with them were very successful, and both of them are among the top producing automobile sales people in Danville. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions, we're going to move to the STAR program presentation.
Yes, sir. Now,
Okay.
I promise not to take up too much of your time.
No, you're fine.
Okay. So we are going to shift gears, board, if that's okay with you. We've been talking about students with challenging behaviors. Certainly, students with autism can also exhibit challenging behaviors. The topography of that behavior, however, is often very different. And as I tell people, when you've met one, there's a saying, it's not mine, you've met one student with autism, you've met the one student with autism, okay? We are talking about a spectrum diagnosis, and so we're going to be meeting a very specific need when I'm talking about the STAR program, okay? So just prevalence, I know you hear about it all the time. I used to preach 1 in 68. It's now 1 in 59, identified somewhere on the spectrum. ASD is an equal opportunity diagnosis. It crosses all racial, ethnic, and socioeconomic groups. ASD is approximately 4 times more common than boys and girls. If you were to look at our December 1 child count data, which is what I review when I'm looking at how students fall out in disabilities, that's what it is. We have 4 times in the division boys than we do girls. Just an overview quick of prevalence. Diagnosis, and this is where it can get really, really interesting when we talk about students on the spectrum. There is research that indicates a diagnosis of ASD at age 2 can be reliable, valid, and stable. Kind of scary when you think about that. Think about early intervention, those we're talking through. However, most children are not diagnosed with ASD until after the age of 4. Also scary when we're thinking about early intervention. And I did mention some things in studies. Parents will say, the first 6 months, my child should have been doing this and they were doing that. 2 years in, it should have been here and now it's there. So as an educator, often it is parents that are coming to us and reporting that something just wasn't right. And that usually is what begins the process within the 4 walls of the school building. Just some quick facts about the spectrum diagnosis in Pittsylvania County. Since 2016, it is the only disability category, and for what it's worth, there are 14 that are identified via IDEA that is on the rise in Pittsylvania County. It went up 4% last year. We currently have 137 identified in Pittsylvania County. If I had more time, I know we were out yesterday, I want to actually give you numbers. I just want to say that the majority, without a doubt, are served in general education. That's the take-home point. They are out in inclusive settings, they are getting support, and they are being successful. We do have a few, not many, a few, I wanted that exact number for you, but I know that it's a few because I know these babies, that are out in our schools, in our single self-contained classroom for students that also may have a significant cognitive disability. They are not operating under the standards of learning, they're operating under the aligned standards of learning. So there's a comorbidity that goes with ASD in this example of an intellectual disability. We have 13 little babies right now that are served in our STAR program. That may not sound like a lot to the board, but these 13 babies can turn a school up on end. And when you look at their services out in the community, it can be incredibly expensive for a very long time, okay? So 13, but big time 13 that we're going to be talking about. And I have this last bullet point, it's anecdotal, but it's the honest truth. If I'm getting a phone call about a student, 9 times out of 10, it's a student that is on the spectrum, and there is something going on, okay? So this is a diagnosis that really has changed, it's forced us to change how we are doing business as educators. I say again, it is a spectrum disorder, and for purposes of this program, we are serving students with moderate to severe autism, and this is what that topography looks like. All of these babies are nonverbal, okay? Significant externalizing behaviors, meaning the hitting, elopement is a big piece of what we deal with. There's also internalizing behaviors, some anxiety, some depression, sensory issues abound. And again, a lot of this repetitive, stereotypical behaviors that you think of when you think about a student that's on the spectrum. Why STAR? I could talk about this all day, and I kind of have a little teeny story. I won't get into all of it, but it goes something like this. It became very, very painful for me when I would go to IEP meetings at the time as an elementary special education supervisor and then later as a SPED director, and have to say that we didn't have anything to meet this need. I'm already going in behind the 8 ball. I can't win. There's no way I can win. I got no programming to do it. And it really just made Robin angry. It made me a little frustrated. So decided that we had to make a change. Sorry, I'm going to read off here while you're doing that. So when you're going into these meetings and you can't offer things to parents, the only thing you have is private day. That's incredibly frustrating. So we didn't have the program. We needed the programming. And there was a history at PCS of serving students with ASD that was not necessarily successful due to over-identification. Let me speak to that for just a minute. You can pull it back up on doing that. So long story made short, there was a program to meet this moderate to severe need at one point in time at Chatham Elementary. I don't know if you know that or not. And it didn't last. It couldn't last because what we were doing was any child with the diagnosis was sent there. So the first thing you do in developing programming is you must have a criteria, because if not, anybody with that diagnosis is going to land in that program, right? So it destroyed the integrity of what they were trying to do. So they got rid of it, we didn't have it, and then for years these children went straight into private day settings. Thank you, sir. So what was the mission? As just me on the front line, I was like, what can I do here? And this is what I wanted to do. This is it. And I didn't think about this, so I was writing this IEP for Dr. Jones, or this is not an IEP, I'm sorry, sir. This PowerPoint on Sunday was to provide students with highly specialized private day school programming. I wanted to go head-to-head with every private day school that I had to go head-to-head with in IEP meetings. But I wanted it embedded in the public school experience. I want to be able to say to parents, listen, you're going to get all of this, but your baby is going to be around typically developing peers. If there's an opportunity to send them out to PE, we'll do it. Lunch, let's have it. They're doing good. We've mastered this skill. Let's get them out into science. You cannot do that when they're in private day. I wanted those kinds of positive learning outcomes. Did we have barriers? Of course we did. And I was writing this. I was like, it made me tired to think about it. We had school cultures, just ship them out, Robin, we can't deal with this, get them out. Community perception, this is a big deal. You know, the thought of, hey, the private days do it better, you can't do this, no way, right? Well, not anymore. Pushback from those own providers, them saying to parents, forget this, we do it better. So it's this constant fight. Where am I going to locate this program? Again, size of Rhode Island, where's this going to go for these babies? Restructuring IEP services, countless IEP meetings I had to attend to get this to happen. Staffing and staff buy-in itself, and of course lack of funding. Just like the other one, the program you're going to see and the teachers that were there, I had to take from other programs to move them into this environment. So it began as a little teeny-weeny pilot, early childhood special ed. I was lucky to have a teacher there who had taught in a similar program in Fairfax. She said, let's go, Robin, let's make it happen. We now have 2 locations. Twin Springs Elementary, you have 2 classrooms there, K2 and 3-5, 5 students per class, 2 teachers, 2 classroom aides, and I will say several assistants. One hallmark of private day, if you want to compete with it, every student in a private day setting with this carries this diagnosis has at least 1-to-1 behavior support, sometimes 2. We're going to look at money in just a second, what that means to you. At Chatham Middle School, we were able to expand it there this year. There's 1 classroom, grades 6, 7, and 8. 3 students in that classroom. I'm very proud. 2 we backed out from private day. 1 teacher, 1 classroom aide, and 1 assistant. So through this process that I began a little bit with a grant with Averett University, we were able to acquire an autism specialist to work with us to build up the program. Her name is Dr. Jill Hamlin. She's also an occupational therapist. She provides all the OT for those star babies. She also helps us with these other things, curriculum program development, assessment, community and parent resource, district-wide professional development. For instance, she currently is providing a course free to all Pittsylvania County teachers regarding intro into the spectrum disorder. We have 36 teachers taking advantage of it this year, which is fantastic. These are some things that she's provided to the division. The criteria itself, don't want to dive too deep, but as I just mentioned this to the board, so you know the difference in where we were at Chatham L. To make it work, you've got to have criteria. We keep it pretty tight. Students are not identified as a STAR student until going into kindergarten. In other words, even if they come to us through early intervention, we serve them in early childhood special ed until we identify them as STAR through our criteria, and they go to Twin Springs. Okay? So we still have a lot of babies we're serving through early intervention in your early childhood special education programming. We do have a rubric that we use, and even if a student does not meet the criteria for STAR, the beauty of this process is that everything that we glean out of the rubric, we can go back to the IEP team and say, hey, not a STAR baby, but these are some things you can do. Let's look at how you're doing your services. So again, we just don't drop them, we look at them through a different lens. IEP development I've talked about. There are major things when you're working with students with this kind of diagnosis, independent work, transitions, restroom, play, those types of things, and all of these students do participate in the aligned standards of learning, or they are a VAP student for us. The philosophy itself, I say this to parents, this is always hard to hear, there's no cure. We're not going to cure a baby of autism in the STAR program. What we are going to use, again, think of Hallmark Private Day philosophy, is an ABA, Applied Behavioral Analysis, is a set of evidence-based interventions used to minimize the key terms, the secondary effects and symptoms that come with the disorder. We're not going to cure it, but we're going to use this particular intervention to help get us there. The classroom structure, all 3 of these classrooms are highly structured, strong use of visuals and assistive technology. They're equipped to meet very specific sensory needs. I just mentioned a few, dim lighting, noise reduction, lots of therapeutic tools that we use there as a part of their occupational therapy. Related services, very proud to say this, that as of this year, we are no longer using contract services for any of our related services. They are all in-house providers. That means we can better control the continuity, the level of services, everything that students need, as opposed to using contract, which we do not have that level of control. Our services are primarily pushed into these classrooms. You want that. You want to generalize across not just what they're learning, but other students in other environments, as opposed to pull out. And sometimes it can be up to 3 times a week that these students are receiving these kind of services. They often use a token economy assistant. I will not get into these ABA-based trainings unless you want me to. This is for your edification. But the point of it was that we wanted to mirror what was being used in a private day facility. Discrete trial training is one. Pivotal response training is a second. Again, I'm happy to provide as much information you want about these. And then what was the curriculum that we decided upon to use these particular interventions? And here they are, and you have more information in your packet. We use the STAR curriculum, evidence-based, normed only on students with autism, which captures everything that I just mentioned, the discrete trial and the pivotal response. There are 6 curricular areas that we focus on: receptive and expressive language, spontaneous language, functional routines, academics, play, and social skills. And I provided the link in case you would like more information about that. Our second curriculum that we picked up to work in concert with STAR, most excited about, is called Teach Town. And if you had a few minutes to go to the site, it's even cool for adults. But it is a blend of computer-delivered and teacher-led ABA instruction. They also have a very comprehensive social-emotional curriculum, and we use this in concert. The reason why this is really special for these classrooms, a lot of our students, well, the students in STAR, remember, they're nonverbal. So they're already using technology to work through their day. So this taps into that. And a lot of them are really very well versed. We have to watch them. They'll want to go out into other sites other than Teach Town. So again, very exciting around the curriculum. And I'm going to wrap it up talking about the data. I do apologize, this is very small. This was from our K-2 class, kindergarten, first and second grade class from last year. And I don't have a little book on here, but I'll just tell you what it's about a little bit. So this one is getting a STAR, we call them STAR babies, to participate in group. You would think they would want that. Students with autism, they often just want to be over here by themselves. Getting them in group is a huge thing. So you see the 4 different students and where they begin in marking period 1 and marking period 6. The point is just vast improvement. The outcomes are unbelievable, and those are in percentages. In this one, it's transition. Again, a lot of these babies, when you start messing with their routine, time to transition over here, full-on meltdown, okay? So we're working on how are they transitioning. You see marking period 1 and 2, and we did not cherry-pick this data. These were all 4 students that were in the class last year, and some did better than others, but they all made progress. This one is related to independent work. So can they sit up on a task and work by themselves with little to no prompting? And you see the beginning marking period and the ending marking period. I'm very proud of this one. When I look back on our mission, or how I wanted to build the program, 8 of the 13 STAR students are currently participating in some type of general education learning environment, alongside typically developing same age peers with the support of STAR. So that means they're going out. They're not just in that classroom all by themselves all day long. I think that's huge. Cost savings. This is 2016 to current. Again, I apologize for that. It's so small. What we did, we took the base rate. Can I go over here just for a second? Okay. So you see your base rate: educational services, behavior support, related services, and evaluation. Why this is important? If a student with severe autism is going out into private day, these are immediate wraparound services. I can give a good example. We exited a child, 5th grade, non-STAR baby, from speech and from OT. The private day immediately put it back in the IEP. Okay? So we want it out, they want it back in. Educational services, we at $280 a day. You see the behavior support. Related services, $80 a session per service. They all get OT, they all get speech. You with me? So in 2015-16, with just our 5 students, we had a savings of $431,000. In 2016-17, 5 students, now I'm suspecting the same 5 students, matter of fact I know they were, same amount. Last year we doubled our babies, and that was identifying out into early childhood, remember, and bringing them in their kindergarten year, $862,000. And for 13 students this year, it'll be $1.1 million. So, and that's assuming that these students are non-Medicaid, meaning that CSA is responsible for the portion of that cost, and that each student receives speech, language, and occupational therapy. And that's an average of 2 times per week. You need to know it's usually 4 or 5 times per week. They all get an evaluation at the end of the year for $175. They're all evaluated in every key area of cognitive and related service. And so we've come right now to approximately $3 million in savings. So I mentioned this PCS cost, what it cost us, and outcomes. So as I said, I didn't get a teacher. So we had to pull from some other schools. We do have contract ASD specialists right now that came to us partially through a grant. So just this year now am I responsible for this MOU with this particular individual. The curriculum materials and training, I got that through a mini-mod grant for $35,000. So that's what we've been working off of. So since the program's inception, I think this is huge. Only one have I lost right now to private day. That child did go residential. So really, the private day couldn't even hold it. That's the point of that comment. Let's see. I do have some practical barriers right now. I was talking to Dr. Jones about this the other day. I really don't have a good answer yet. But Twin Springs is just busting at the seams, y'all. I had to move our STAR teacher this year right before school started. So I've outgrown Twin Springs. It works there. We've got wonderful support from administration. I never thought I could grow it there, but we have. But we've outgrown it. And then of course funding around this it's a very expensive venture, but they can be expensive babies to work with in the community. Those are my 2 real practical barriers that I'm always having to think through. Any questions about STAR, the STAR program?
Questions on the STAR program?
Mr. Small, if a student qualifies for STAR and does not live within the 2 districts of Twin Springs and Chatham, are the parents looked upon to provide the transportation, or does we provide the school?
We provide. And it's an important differentiation between STAR and between RFS. Every STAR baby here is a special education student. Okay, so they would be riding 9 times out of 10 special education transportation. We do have a few parents that choose to transport their children due to the nature of their disability, and we work with them via contract, but we are responsible. Thank you.
Anybody else? From me, I'm very proud of this board and the school board for working together on this. I know the conversation kind of started because of what we saw happen in the CSA, but certainly the money is always a part because of the budget we have. But to talk about the results that these 2 programs are getting in view of private day is just astounding. So, that's just special. And kudos to the 2 boards for working together to make this happen. For Ms. Haymore and the job she's doing, and Dr. Jones, thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, we're down to number 6, which is again Richard Hicks, solid waste update.
If Kevin got to admit I didn't make a copy, I'm going to let it go on. I go to bed thinking about solid waste, and I wake up in the morning thinking about solid waste. So I want to give you an update. All right, we'll talk about landfill first. And, of course, y'all know we were trying to buy some additional equipment for the landfill. We changed the way we're accepting waste at the landfill. I'll tell you what our anticipated results are and what some additional proposed modifications will do. That's our new dozer. It's dirty, so it's been working. But we're glad to have it. It's a nice piece of equipment. That's our new pan. We told you it was gonna cost us about $400,000 to $500,000. And we got this one with less than 5,000 hours on it. And I think it was $325. So, it'll last us for years and years and years. It's a nice piece of equipment, and it'll move mountains. Our biggest change is when you go to the landfill now, we're doing what we call flat dumping. You bank right up there where the trash is, up there. You know, there now where, before there used to be a raised area where you backed up and dropped it in a hole, and there's some reasons for that change. By working a smaller area, our compactor goes over a lot more times. And we feel pretty confident we can increase our compaction from 1,000 pounds per cubic yard to 1,500 plus cubic yards. That by itself will extend the life of Cell D, which is we're currently working in our future Cell C by years, not months and days, but years. The smaller working face reduces the fuel usage, the wear and tear on equipment, because you're not pushing trash all the way to the other side of the landfill to bury it. That saves us money. The smaller working face also reduces, the rainwater that goes into the ground, and of course that produces leachate, which has to be pumped to the Chatham wastewater treatment plant, which costs us about $80,000 per year. We feel like we can cut that in half or better by having a smaller working base. There are some problems. Hey, safety issues. We got our residents trying to back in to the same areas that our garbage trucks are backing into. First Piedmont's trucks are backing into. At this particular time, we are having trouble with tires and equipment. They have been more flat tires, but as we get our road built into it, that should improve significantly. And of course, we're doing it differently. You always say, well, we've always done it that way. We should have changed. Our road, as I mentioned, we're working on that. We're trying to get that finalized. It'll be a lot better in the situation. Of course, weather is going to impact that. We had about 9 or 10 inches of rain at the landfill in the last week or so. So that hadn't helped any. And we lost it.
Then you had hangouts.
As far as solutions, we are going to continue working on that roadway. It's a nice gravel roadway where the trucks get back in there. We are looking at building a small concrete pad where our citizens can back up to, which will be away from the main portion of the landfill. They can dump on that concrete pad, drive away, that mixing with our trucks and backing into the garbage. Tom has a very nice dump area. They can dump their stuff and drive off. We should be, that should be finished hopefully in the next 4 to 6 weeks or so. Our green box sites. As you know, we almost lost the box at Blair's Construction. We have signed a 1-year lease with the owner of that property that's on your agenda from that's your business meeting this evening. At that same site, we increased the boxes from 10 to 13. That's probably one of our worst sites. You've all got pictures of it being over while we get all kinds of problems there. At White Blair's store, that's probably our second worst site. We've just increased from 7 boxes to 10 boxes last week. And all of those boxes were just newly painted boxes, so I think it looks a whole lot better. I will continue to keep an eye out on all the other green box sites, make sure we don't have any issues. And lastly, we have hired a part-time person that will work a few hours a day. He's going to go around to all the green box sites. He'll be picking up trash. He'll be, if there's a couch or a chair or something, he'll put that in the back of the truck and take it to the compactor sites. So our goal is to keep those sites a lot cleaner than they have been in the past. And if you read them by them, they did look pretty bad. The convenience centers, we're going to close our first site, which is the Roswell 622 site next Monday. We have enough site attendance in place, so when the gates open in the morning from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., there will be a site attendant on site at all times. The 58 West site, we're proposing to do that October 8th. We have enough site attendance there. And then Mount Cross, Mount Herman, and Blair's will be the next sites. Those are our 5 pilot sites. And as you see here, our proposed hours are from 7 a.m. in the morning until 7 p.m. I'm sure somebody will got some calls on the hours. And some of the sites, we got to do some work on our fencing. If you look at the 58 West site, there's a gate at that site, but it's 4 foot tall. So when you close it, it's not going to help much, so we'll have to put a larger gate there. But, as I said, we've also hired 2 part-time people that will be visiting all the compactor sites and the green block sites. We're calling them our solid waste assistance team. They want to call them the sweat team. We settled on SWAT. And their main objective is to educate the citizens on what is allowed at the sites, what isn't allowed. They will also be looking for tire dumping, brush dumping, and scavenging. We've given them body cameras from the sheriff's office, so if they run into someone that wants to be local or wants to cause problems, we'll have a video of it. They will also do some cleaning at the sites when you visit them, and they will also have the ability to issue warning citations. Mainly we want them to tell the citizens what's allowed, what's not allowed. Now, of course, scavenging is one of our biggest issues. Not moving together.
Here's what our guys are wearing out there. These are temporary. They'll soon be getting some polo shirts, also white and blue. We want them to be seen, people to ask them questions.
In Pittsylvania County, we started real little. We got 3 generations there that are throwing stuff out of the dumpster. And of course, tires is a big issue. I thought I had this guy, but he's got farm use tags on his truck. I don't have a clue who he is. Enforcement, we've got 4 cameras up now: Griff, Callan, Basel, and Rockford. As we get through the camera system, that we'll start sending out citations, which would be a $50 citation if you call it like the tire and brush or things like that. There will be some warning citations. Our most worst case we may prosecute as a class 1 misdemeanor. And we'll continue education through our website, Facebook page, and everything. Then we'll continue the news articles in the newspaper and television stations. We're currently looking for a new site for the Blair's, especially the Green Box site. And we've got to go through the VDOT for consideration of turn lanes and tapers, so it just becomes a big deal when you're on a major road like that. We're looking at a site for the wide Blair's Green Box site. We're looking for a site for the Moon's Store Green Box site, and we're trying to find a site in the Bannister district. And we're kind of looking at a regional compactor site, which would have everything, and a standard compactor site, which is kind of what we've got now down in the neighborhood convenience center, which would be a much smaller system, maybe up in Grid or somewhere. We don't have a lot of population. All we need maybe is a compactor as opposed to the open top boxes and recycling and all that. All that's still being studied right now. We're looking at a long-range plan for the modification of our existing
compactor says, we want to make them more convenient to the public, we want to make them easy to use, we want all the recycling and some other things. So we're also having that under consideration. The future considerations, we need a better definition in chapter 7 of what household waste is. It is not very defined right now. A second option we're looking at is maybe for a building contractor, maybe they should have a box on site. So that we know that waste will be carried to a landfill. And we're also looking at accepting tires at the landfill. We currently get them in our open top boxes, they're dumped out, and we got to pull them out, and we have to store them over to the side, then we got to wash them before we ship them off, and it's costing us probably about $1 to $1.50 per tire to dispose of those tires. That's pretty much it. That's where we are on the solid waste. Okay. Questions from the board? Mr. Barker.
Yeah, question. Richard, I know we got problems and I know we got things we got to improve, but I'm gonna go record and say, I think that them sites ought to be 7 to 8 because people that work 12-hour shifts, it's hard for them to get home, get the trash and get to there. I've already got a call from his district, and I had several days of mine. I'm hearing everybody saying they're getting called. I don't want to inconvenience people that work that they can't get there to dump their trash, so I think that's something to look at. And it may need to go 9, I don't know, this thing's a work in progress. But I also understand we don't need to leave it open 24/7. I understand that. But that's something I'd like to
bring up that video right quick
to look into. And on the tire thing, I've talked to David about this numerous times. I think accepting tires is a good idea for a fee, especially if in business, because it's hard to get rid of them. I think that would be something that, pay for them, but no, of course. But
well, you see, we're getting them now. I bet we got 50 tires today. They're showing up.
Yeah, that's a big need. Where do you get rid of them? I talk to people all the time, but where do we get rid of tires? Because not many people in that business anymore.
Yeah. We got to pull them back out, and we got to wash them before we ship them over. That's pretty late process.
It's just a lot. It's hitting everybody at one time. We're doing up the fees and enforcement. I don't want people to feel like now they can't even go dump my trash. I want them to see that we're friendly. We want to improve things. Because one of the gentlemen I talked to that, I told him, I said, well, there's problems there that we're trying to address, but we also got to look at the consumers' aspect that they need to be able to dump the trash. Because I was telling somebody, honestly, I usually go about 8 o'clock at night myself because I work all the time. I think that's something we need to keep in mind.
And keep in mind, 7 to 7 gives you 84 hours a week. So, it is 7 days a week. So, Mr. Davis and then Mr. Stevens.
I agree with Mr. Barber on that, at 7 to 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and that's for those 12-hour shifters. I agree with that. And the second thing is this: when you got those tires, they can be recycled in the sense that we've got them at these sites in schools, like they're painted green or dyed green, but they also use them, I believe, on asphalt in certain areas of the country. I think if you got money both ways. You know what I'm saying? If we could do that, if you looked at that as far as recyclable and going to a corporation that does work it down, work the tires down. If you did that, Mr. Hicks, have you thought about that? I was just wondering.
Right now, we're paying about $1 per tire to dispose of. So I thought we charged maybe $44.
I understand.
We already got a company that are taking, and they recycle the tires.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
I think over time you're talking about thousands of tires.
And by the way, that truck that you had farm use on, I sent that guy through there, he's a friend of mine, just to see if you guys are doing the job.
You tell him I'm looking for him.
Yeah. He told me y'all didn't know what was going on, so.
Yeah, just wondering, I pass this on to you guys before, maybe doing an online survey or something, try to get a feel from the public what are the best hours to open this thing. I know I usually go different times of the day myself, so I think 7 to 7. I remember when they used to lock them up, and it wasn't very convenient.
I think it's very important about the tires, because if the citizens do not have anywhere to take the tires, they're going to end up in the woods on the side of the road.
I agree.
And so we have to offer some way for citizens to, get rid of the tires. The second thing is this, businesses that change tires, I know we got into this on some property I was involved with, for a long time. And what the business owner did, he knew he was going out of business in 12 months. And he stored tires on site and then walked away. They can charge a disposal fee when they get rid of tires, and to pay just like the counties pay. Maybe that's something that we take a look at, businesses that change tires, and I know that, I don't know if you do tires or not.
I take $2.50 to run out of
Yeah,
Company Greens.
yeah. But we take a look at how many tires is running through there and to see if they send them to Greensboro or wherever. Because if they selling 600 tires and they only sending 300 to Greensboro, it's 300 going somewhere else through businesses. And this is not new stuff. This is going on across the country. So I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to take a look at what some other people are doing with two different categories: through businesses and through private citizens. But we have got to offer private citizens somewhere to dispose of those tires. They have to. I mean, they're going to end up down there. I live in a rural area and people dump on the side of the road on property, and into dumpsters. I went over to the dumpster at Mount Airy, and I've been trying to use different ones just to see what's going on. Moons Road, Mount Airy, Grit, Motley. And each time I went, there was at least one tire laying up against the dumpster. Now, one of the things that we talked about in the meetings was people are also leaving things that can be reused. Tennis shoes, books. I'm still seeing a lot of that. And I think we discussed that in a meeting about setting something up where they could leave that stuff in a pet center.
Yeah, we're still working on that.
Still working.
So, I mean,
We let that go, David.
but I do know this, we get a lot of complaints on social media and phone calls to supervisors about the trash situation. I know I'm getting them.
Well, hopefully people are going to start seeing some real change. I think having these guys on the street and passing out these and being available to assist is going to hopefully start changing some of the perspective that's not on Richard.
Yeah, that's Callan's on a Saturday night at 11:30 p.m. I mean, those guys stayed there about 30 minutes with their flashlights falling in and out of the dumpsters filling up that truck.
But let's talk about that just a minute. Do we really want to spend a lot of time on this, people pulling stuff out of the dumpsters? Why is that a priority?
We're having a lot of complaints of people feeling threatened to go on the site because people are aggressive in this behavior, and second, threatened about stealing their identities.
And you got liability issues.
We got, it's kind of like the U.S. mail. Once you put it in that blue box, it's the mailbox. You can't take it out. And it's the same way here. Once you deposit something, it is Pittsylvania County's property. And having people, not only is it not safe, but we are getting lots of people saying, I'm scared. I even had an employee come to me and say that they were concerned about their safety at a site at dusk, but also identity theft and things like that. We just don't need people in our boxes.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying.
A few questions. Who is doing the majority of the monitoring of our cameras?
I am right now, but it's going to the landfill in the future. And we'll probably have several people looking at it. We got access will be made very easy.
I can only imagine how added, more to your plate would be problematic. So that's good. The additional boxes at the Blair store site this weekend looked great. Obviously, I think we all know the weekends have been our problematic time. I do know you guys are picking them up on Saturdays, which is helpful. Any concern or problems or issues with our private sector, with our contract with First Piedmont, about now it's additional boxes and or the
My biggest
arrangement?
issue with them, if there's a couch or
wood in the box, they won't pick it up. And we're having to go back with our, boom truck to pick out the stuff they
Okay.
don't pick up.
Okay.
But now Saturday, we're not picking them up on Saturday yet, but on Sundays, but those two sites, we are sending out our boom truck, and if there's couches and chairs in those boxes, we're pulling them out. He's also mashing everything down, so we've got capacity on the weekends, hopefully, so.
Any thoughts on additional boxes at the Climax store site? I don't know if the site will take it. I don't know.
I haven't
as
heard
far
any
as-
complaints. I think they didn't want any more boxes at that.
Okay.
Site. See, Blair Store, didn't want any boxes, but we kept adding some, they said, okay.
Yeah, the arrangement's not ideal there.
They said, yeah, you can put a few more, so.
But I mean, it helps.
Yeah.
And I was asking, why couldn't we make it more horseshoe shaped? And they're explaining to me that we gotta keep road access into that field there, so.
It's the first Piedmont's truck, they can't back out on the highway when they're empty.
I got you. And I figured it was some thought put into it.
Blair's construction, but they're not supposed to.
I got two things. I'd like to pursue the tire disposal. I think we're all interested in that. How much the fee will be. I just told you what I think. Well, it was a reasonable fee. You said what it costs you, so I mean, that may be something we can use to help. And personally, I'd like for the chairman to take consensus to the board and see if we want to go 7779, because I done heard several of them like 79. We've only got one sign up, and it's easy to paint over that 7 now versus put them in and go back and change it. With lack of confusion, start off on the right foot and see what the board's take is on it, because I mean, we're the ones that's gonna catch it. I think we're the ones that need to decide what time we want to do it. And I'm for 79.
You want us to run the cost difference? I mean, we're talking about 30
People are paying for it,
places.
when they start paying that fee, I know what's gonna happen. This is a problem we ran into before, when they used to close them. You're gonna get a lot of trash tossed from the dumpster in the woods, because they go over and they can't dump the trash, they get irritated, which I can understand that also. What's the cost gonna be going and cleaning it up somewhere else? I mean, they go dump trash, they don't wanna take trash back to the house, I mean, I know that. Your wife don't wanna see it coming back, or your husband, vice versa.
That's right.
I mean, personally, I'd like to see 7 to 9. I think that's a good number. I think by 9 o'clock, people that work 12-hour shifts, if they had plenty of time to get trash done.
You know, we have the luxury of having these 5 sites that we're calling a pilot.
Mhm.
So we can do anything with those 5 sites and test, and we can back up, we can expand, we can do whatever we want. I would suggest whatever we do, let's test it 5 times before we put it all.
Well, I tell you what, do 7 to 9, see how many people come from 7 to 9. See what the number is, you know what I'm saying, then you know.
See how many complaints we get.
I think 7 to 9, at 9 o'clock at night, most people that dump their trash by 9 o'clock at night, especially if they work 12-hour shifts, they go home and go to bed.
Right.
I think that's a good reasonable time.
What's the board consensus? 7 to 9?
We're asking the
Well, I
site
agree.
attendants to be the responsible party.
Correct.
And they'll walk the gate. It's gonna have some increased cost, and I do agree with Mr. Barber. And I think ultimately, we're gonna see some of it, even if we go to 9, some people are gonna pull up there and be upset, they pay the fee, but it's not gonna be the same magnitude as.
Within
if
reason,
you're doing
though, if
7
they
to
do it by
7.
9, they just need to go
It's gonna be a
get
smaller
trash.
percentage, because you got 2 more
Right.
hours.
Right.
So, if everybody's okay with the test pilots being 7 to 9, and then we can look at it later and see.
We can just run through the end of this calendar year. Let's just
Yeah.
run it through December 31st.
Run it to 7 to 9 through the end of the year, and then we'll look to see how many people's dumping between 7 and 9. 7 PM and 9 PM. Then we'll know if 8's the right
7
number.
a.m.
or-
to 9 p.m. you say.
Yes, but I'm talking about the margin.
Study that 2 hours, yeah.
Yeah, study the 2-hour margin and see if 8's right or 9's right, or.
And actually, we could do them different times at different sites. If one site gets a lot of activity in 7 to 9, leave that to 9. If you
Close
go
it
don't
on
have
the
anything,
side.
that's right, because the attendance.
And we'll have the Simmons there, they can be
That's right.
ticking it off, and we can see what the numbers look like.
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
Okay. And the landfill, keep in mind, we've been open for 2 Saturdays.
Spread the word.
Well, I think some of that is an
Weather
informational
too.
piece.
Well, the weather too.
Oh, yeah, weather this week
Real
is
good.
terrible. You probably get more
It is
activity.
open for me today.
Wait till the fall and the leaves and
Right.
all that cleanup starts happening, it'll increase on Saturday. I think so too.
Okay, clarification on the pad you're putting in, is there gonna be some kind of drop off, or is there gonna be a ramp installed for that? That's one of the big.
We already got one area that is significantly higher than what we're having in now. So before the pad down, they just push it over the side.
So we going 7 to 9? Make sure they change that sign. Because I'm already hearing complaints about it.
Get your Sharpie and go right out and line your face.
They might get me on camera.
Take your mark.
Yeah, I'll swing by it on out.
All right. Anybody else for Mr. Hicks on this item? Okay, thank you. Any business meeting discussion items additional? Mr. Smith?
Not for myself.
Okay. Anybody think from the board? Okay.
Before we go, realistically, Ms. Toot has agreed, we're way behind, and we got a lot of closed sessions. Ms. Toot, we have a very light, hopefully, tonight's business meeting. Ms. Toot has graciously agreed to, she's willing to do her closed session tonight, and Mr. Rowe, I don't want to speak for him, but I believe he could do it tonight or call in tonight. Do you want to just tackle 8B and 8C in this limited time we have before the meeting? Is that
Yeah, I believe we got less than an hour.
Does that make sense to everybody?
Is that okay with the board?
All right, so we just need to read 8B and 8C. I'll be happy to read it if you need me to. Okay. Consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel. Nothing in subdivision shall be construed to permit the closure of a meeting merely because an attorney representing the public body's attendance or consulted on the matter. Legal authority, Virginia Code 2.23711A8, subject matter opioid litigation. Purpose, consultation with legal counsel regarding opioid damages, assessment report, and potentially participate in opioid litigation. 8C, discussion of the award of a public contract involving expenditure of public funds, including interviews of bidders or offers and discussion of the terms and scope of such contract, where discussion in open session would adversely affect the bargaining position. Legal authority, Virginia Code 2.23711A29, subject matter, Department DSS Human Resource Investigation. Purpose, interviews with potential attorneys to conduct DSS HR investigation, discussion of terms and scope of legal retainer contract. Do I have a motion to go into closed session for those two items?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Blackstock, seconded by Mr. Barber. Any discussion on the motion? You got credit.
Kevin, will you help him?
She can vote, if you want to say out loud what your vote is, she'll vote for you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, please record the vote. The motion is approved unanimously. We will go to closed session.
Be it resolved that at the meeting of the Pittsylvania County Board of Supervisors on September 18, 2018, the board hereby certifies by recorded vote that to the best of each board member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and identifying the motion authorizing the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting. If any member believes there was a departure from the requirements of the code, he shall so state prior to the vote, indicating the substance of the departure of the statement shall be recorded in minutes. Mr. Barber?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Blackstock?
Yes.
I had to go to the bathroom.
Mr. Davis?
President,
Mr. Farmer?
Yes.
Dr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Scares?
Yes.
Mr. Warren?
Yes.